Inspector Yuna stood at the observation deck of her ship, looking down at the blue and green planet below, Earth. She had heard many stories about this world. Some said the beings there were strange. Others said they were dangerous. But looking at their planet now, Yuna could not understand why anyone would say such things. The planet had no shield. No energy barrier surrounded it. No defense satellites floated in orbit. There were only a few metal boxes they called space stations and some old machines they had sent to look at their moon and nearby planets. It was, by all galactic standards, completely unprotected. Yuna was a senior inspector for the Galactic Council. Her job was simple. She traveled to new planets, checked their defenses, and wrote reports. She had done this work for over 300 cycles. She had seen planets with shields so strong that even starfire could not break them. She had seen worlds with armies of robots waiting in the darkness of space. She had seen civilizations that could fold space itself to escape danger. But she had never seen anything like Earth. Her assistant, a young officer named Bora, walked up beside her. Bora was new to this work. She still believed that every planet had some secret, some hidden strength. Yuna had learned long ago that most planets were exactly what they appeared to be. "Inspector," Bora said, "I've finished the first scan. The results are concerning." Yuna did not look away from the planet. "Tell me." "They have no planetary shield. No orbital defense platforms. Their satellites are used mostly for communication and weather prediction. They have some nuclear weapons, but these are pointed at each other, not at space." "At each other?" Yuna turned to look at her assistant. Bora nodded slowly. "Yes, Inspector. They have divided their planet into different territories. They call them countries. These countries sometimes fight each other. They have weapons ready to destroy each other at any moment." Yuna blinked her large silver eyes. In her 300 cycles of work, she had never heard of such a thing. Most civilizations that reached space travel had united long before. The dangers of the universe made small differences seem foolish. But these humans had gone to space while still ready to kill each other. "Fascinating," Yuna said quietly. "Continue with the full evaluation. I want to see everything." Over the next several days, Yuna and her team conducted a complete security assessment of Earth. They scanned every continent. They observed every military base. They counted every weapon. They studied every defense system. The results were worse than Yuna had expected. Earth had armies, yes. Millions of soldiers spread across hundreds of countries. But these armies were designed to fight each other. They had tanks and planes and ships, but nothing that could stop an attack from space. Their most advanced weapons were nuclear bombs, which were powerful but slow and easy to stop. Their air defenses could barely track their own aircraft, let alone ships that could cross galaxies. Yuna wrote in her report, "Earth possesses no meaningful space defense capabilities. A standard invasion force of 5,000 units could conquer the entire planet in approximately 6 standard days." She paused after writing this. It seemed almost cruel to put it so plainly. But her job was to tell the truth, not to make planets feel better about their weaknesses. On the 5th day, Yuna decided to visit the planet's surface. The Galactic Council had made contact with Earth's leaders 10 cycles ago. Since then, a small embassy had been established in a city called Seoul. This was where visiting inspectors were supposed to go first. Yuna's shuttle landed on a platform outside the embassy. The city around her was loud and bright and full of movement. Vehicles filled the streets. People walked in every direction. Lights flashed from buildings covered in screens. Music and voices mixed together into a constant noise. It was chaos. Complete and total chaos. Yuna stepped out of her shuttle and tried to understand what she was seeing. On other planets, Cities were organized. Traffic flowed in patterns. People moved with purpose. Everything had its place. But here, everything seemed random. A man on a small two-wheeled vehicle cut in front of a large transport. A group of young humans ran across the street while lights told them to stop. Someone was selling food from a tiny cart while smoke rose into the air. An old woman was arguing with a younger woman about the price of vegetables. And yet, somehow, nothing crashed. No one died. The chaos continued, but it worked. Inspector Yuna? She turned to see a human male walking toward her. He was average height for his species, with black hair and a wide smile. He wore a formal suit, but his tie was slightly loose, as if he had been pulling at it. "I am Ambassador Taiho," he said, bowing slightly. "Welcome to Earth. I hope your journey was comfortable." Yuna studied him carefully. She had read files on this human. Taiho was one of Earth's representatives to the Galactic Council. He was known for being friendly, talkative, and completely unserious. Other ambassadors found him confusing. "The journey was acceptable," Yuna said. "I am here to complete my security evaluation." Of course," Taiho said, still smiling. "Let me guess. We failed?" Yuna was surprised by his directness. Most planetary representatives tried to argue. They made excuses. They pointed to things inspectors had missed. They begged for better scores. "Yes," Yuna said carefully. "Your planet has almost no space defenses. You would be unable to resist even a minor invasion force." Taiho nodded as if she had told him the weather. "We know. You. Ooh. No? Oh, yes. We have known for years. Ever since the Council made contact, we understood that we were far behind. Our scientists calculated that it would take us about 200 years to build proper defenses. Maybe more." Yuna felt confused. This was not how these conversations usually went. "And this does not concern you?" Taiho laughed. It was a strange sound, full and warm. "Of course it concerns us. But concern and fear are different things, Inspector. Would you like some coffee?" "I do not understand." "Coffee. It is a drink we make from beans. It has chemicals that make you feel more awake. Very popular here. I think you might like it." Yuna did not know how to respond. She had just told this human that his entire planet could be conquered in less than a week, and he was offering her a beverage. Yes, coffee would be acceptable." Taiho led her into the embassy. The building was a strange mix of human and galactic design. Curved walls made from alien materials stood next to traditional wooden frames. Screens showing galactic news hung beside old paintings of mountains and rivers. They sat in a comfortable room with large windows looking out at the city. A young woman brought them small cups of dark liquid. Yuna picked hers up carefully and took a small sip. It was bitter and strange, but not unpleasant. She could feel something in it, some energy that touched her mind. She understood why humans liked this drink. "So," Taiho said, leaning back in his chair, "you want to know about our defenses, or lack of them?" "Yes, I must complete my report." "The Council will want to know your plans for improvement." Taiho took a long sip of his coffee. "Our plan is simple, Inspector. We do not plan to build traditional defenses." "Excuse me?" "Think about it. You said yourself that it would take us 200 years to catch up. In that time, the galaxy could change completely. New weapons could be invented. New threats could appear. Why spend 2 centuries building walls that might already be useless?" Yuna set down her cup. "Then, what is your plan?" "To simply hope no one attacks you." "Not hope," Taiho said. "Trust." "Trust?" "Yes, trust in the Council. Trust in our neighbors. Trust in the fact that the galaxy is mostly peaceful. And trust in ourselves." "Trust in yourselves?" What does that mean? Taiho smiled again, but this time it was different. There was something behind it. Something sharp. Inspector, do you know the history of our planet? I have read the basic files. Then you know that we have been at war with ourselves for most of our existence. We have fought over land, over resources, over ideas, over gods. We have survived ice ages and plagues and disasters. We have come close to destroying ourselves more than once. Yes, this is in the files. And yet, Taiho said, spreading his hands, here we are. Still alive. Still building. Still dreaming. Yuna did not understand what he was trying to say. You believe your history of violence makes you strong? Not violence, survival. We are very, very good at not dying, Inspector. Even when we should. Especially when we should. He stood up and walked to the window. The city stretched out below, still chaotic, still loud. Do you know what we did when the Council made first contact? Other planets might have panicked. They might have built walls and weapons. They might have hidden. What did you do? Taiho turned back to her, his smile wide again. We threw a party. The biggest celebration in human history. People danced in the streets. They laughed. They cried. They got drunk and sang songs about the stars. That seems irresponsible. Maybe, or maybe it was the most human thing we could do. We faced the unknown, and we celebrated. Yuna finished her coffee. It had grown cold, but she found she did not mind. Ambassador, I must be honest. Your attitude confuses me. Your planet is defenseless. Any hostile force could destroy you. And yet you sit here smiling and offering me drinks. Yes. Why? Taiho walked back to his chair and sat down. He looked at her with eyes that seemed older than his face. Inspector, I will tell you a secret. Humans are of... The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It could hold representatives from over 10,000 worlds. The ceiling was so high that clouds sometimes formed near the top. The walls were made of crystal that had been grown over millions of cycles, each layer representing a different era of galactic history. Today, only a small section of the chamber was in use. The Council's Security Committee was meeting to discuss Inspector Yuna's report on Earth. Yuna stood at the central podium, her silver eyes reflecting the soft light from above. Around her sat 12 council members, each from a different major civilization. They watched her with expressions ranging from boredom to concern. In conclusion, Yuna said, finishing her summary, Earth fails to meet minimum security standards in every category. They have no planetary shield, no orbital defenses, no space-capable military force. Their most advanced weapons are nuclear devices, which are effective against each other, but useless against modern invasion technology. She paused, remembering Ambassador Taiho's smile. However, I have added a note recommending further observation. The humans display unusual psychological characteristics that may be relevant to future assessments. Counselor Ga raised her hand. She was from the Harmonic Collective, a civilization known for careful planning and precise action. Her body was tall and thin, covered in scales that changed color with her emotions. Right now, they were a worried shade of yellow. Inspector, can you explain what you mean by unusual psychological characteristics? Yuna thought carefully before answering. The humans are aware of their vulnerability. They understand that they cannot defend themselves against galactic threats. Yet they do not seem afraid. Their ambassador actually laughed when I told him about their security failures. Laughed? Counselor Jihee's scales turned orange with confusion. Is this some kind of defense mechanism? A form of denial? I do not believe so. The ambassador explained that humans prefer to face fear with humor rather than panic. They believe that worry does not help them survive. Another counselor spoke up. This was Elder Dohwan. the oldest member of the security committee. He came from the stone memory species, beings that live for thousands of cycles and move slowly through time. His body looked like a mountain that had learned to walk. His voice was deep and slow, like rocks grinding together. "This is interesting," Elder Dowan said. "I have seen many young species face the galaxy for the first time. Most of them build walls. Most of them hide. I have never seen one laugh." Counselor Ga shook her head. "With respect, Elder, this is not a laughing matter. Earth is located in a strategic sector. If hostile forces were to establish a base there, it would threaten 3 major trade routes. We cannot allow such a vulnerability to exist." "What do you propose?" asked another counselor. Ga stood up, her scales turning a determined shade of blue. "I propose protective occupation. We send a peacekeeping force to Earth. We establish orbital defenses. We protect the humans from themselves and from others." The chamber grew quiet. Protective occupation was a serious step. It meant taking control of a planet's space and military decisions. It was usually only done when a civilization was too primitive or too dangerous to protect itself. Yuna felt uncomfortable. She remembered the chaos of soul, the noise and movement and life. She remembered Taiho's strange confidence. She did not think the humans would accept being occupied. "If I may speak," she said. The counselors turned to look at her. "I spent several days on Earth. I spoke with their ambassador and observed their society. I believe that protective occupation would be problematic." "Problematic how?" Counselor Ga asked. "The humans have a strong tradition of independence. Their history is full of wars fought against occupation and control. They have overthrown empires. They have defeated armies much larger than their own. They do not accept being ruled by others. They would have no choice," Jihei said. "Our technology is far beyond theirs." "Perhaps, but I observed something else. The humans are very creative. They find unexpected solutions to problems. They adapt quickly. If we tried to control them, they would find ways to resist." Another counselor, a being made of floating crystals named Somi, spoke up. "Are you suggesting that these primitive beings could resist the Galactic Council?" "I am suggesting that it would not be worth the cost. Earth has 8 billion humans. Each one thinks independently. Each one has their own ideas, their own plans, their own strategies. Trying to control them would be like trying to hold water in your hands." Elder Dowan made a sound like a small earthquake. It was his version of laughter. "The inspector makes a good point," he said. "I have studied Earth's history. These beings have survived much. Ice covered their planet for thousands of cycles. They survived. Disease killed half their population. They survived. They have fought 2 wars that involved their entire world. They survived both times. Survival is not the same as strength," Counselor Ga argued. "Is it not?" Elder Dowan asked. "What is strength, if not the ability to continue existing? The oldest and most powerful civilizations in the galaxy are not those with the biggest weapons. They are those that found ways to survive when they should have died." The debate continued for several hours. Different counselors offered different opinions. Some agreed with Ga that Earth needed protection. Others agreed with Elder Dowan that the humans should be left alone. A few suggested compromise solutions, like offering defensive technology to Earth in exchange for trade agreements. Finally, the committee decided to postpone any action. They would continue to observe Earth and make a decision later. It was the kind of non-decision that made everyone slightly unhappy, but no one angry enough to fight. After the meeting, Yuna found herself standing in one of the council station's observation lounges. The great window showed a view of the galactic core, billions of stars burning in the distance. She was thinking about Taiho's words. About laughter and fear and survival. Inspector Yuna? She turned to see Elder Dowan slowly approaching. His massive stone body made the floor vibrate slightly with each step. Elder, I did not expect to see you here. I wanted to speak with you privately, he said. His voice was quiet for his species, which meant it only sounded like distant thunder. About the humans. What about them? Elder Dowan positioned himself next to her, looking out at the stars. When he spoke, it was slowly, as if each word had been carefully chosen over centuries. I am very old, Inspector. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have watched species become powerful and then destroy themselves. I have learned that the galaxy does not care about power. It only cares about endurance. I do not understand. The strongest civilizations I have known were not the ones with the best weapons or the largest fleets. They were the ones that could change, that could adapt, that could face impossible situations and find new ways forward. He turned his massive head to look at her. His eyes were like diamonds set in stone. The humans are only 300 cycles old as a spacefaring species. They are babies by galactic standards. But they have something that most species do not have. What is that? Chaos. Yuna frowned. Chaos? How is that an advantage? Because chaos cannot be predicted, Elder Dowan said. Every other species in the galaxy follows patterns. They build according to plans. They fight according to strategies. They think according to logic. But the humans, they do things that make no sense. They create when they should destroy. They laugh when they should cry. They hope when they should surrender. That sounds like weakness, not strength, does it? Elder Dohan's stone face shifted into something that might have been a smile. Tell me, Inspector, how do you defeat an enemy that does not follow any rules? How do you predict a species that does not even predict itself? Yuna thought about this. In her training, she had learned many things about warfare and defense. She knew how to calculate attack vectors and defensive positions. She knew how to estimate casualties and resources. Everything followed mathematics. Everything could be predicted, but the humans had surprised her at every turn. When she expected fear, she found laughter. When she expected desperation, she found coffee and art museums. When she expected pleading, she found a smile. I see what you mean, she said slowly. But surely this cannot protect them from a real invasion. Chaos and humor will not stop weapons. Perhaps not, Elder Dowan agreed. But consider this. The humans have something else that no other species possesses. What? They have survived each other. Yuna waited for him to explain. Most species, Elder Dowan continued, develop quickly once they reach a certain point. They unify. They become one civilization, one government, one people. This makes them strong against outside threats, but also predictable. And the humans? The humans reach space while still divided. They still have hundreds of governments, thousands of cultures, millions of conflicting ideas. They are constantly competing with each other, constantly fighting, constantly adapting. This seems like a weakness. It was. For most of their history, it caused them terrible suffering. But it also made them incredibly creative. Every culture developed different technologies, different strategies, different ways of thinking. They stole ideas from each other and improved them. They competed until only the best ideas survived. Elder Dowan turned back to the window. An invasion force attacking Earth would not face one civilization with one strategy. Daewoo, the Vectari Empire, had ruled their sector of the galaxy for 15,000 cycles. They were conquerors, warriors, hunters. Their bodies were built for violence, with 4 arms, thick armor-like skin, and eyes that could see in complete darkness. They had never lost a war. They had never failed to take what they wanted. When they learned about Earth, they saw opportunity. A planet with no defenses, no shields, no orbital platforms. 8 billion beings who had never faced a real threat from space. It would be the easiest conquest in Victari history. A footnote. A joke. War Commander Hyunwoo led the invasion fleet. He was old for a Victari, nearly 200 cycles, with scars covering most of his body. He had conquered 47 worlds. He expected Earth to be number 48. His fleet consisted of 500 warships, 50,000 ground troops, and enough weapons to destroy the planet 10 times over. It was actually more force than necessary, but Hyunwoo believed in overwhelming power. He liked to crush resistance before it could form. The fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Earth's moon. From there, they could see the blue planet hanging in space like a ripe fruit waiting to be picked. "Begin scanning," Hyunwoo ordered. His tactical officer worked the sensors. "Commander, I am detecting no orbital defenses, no shield generators, no military vessels. The planet is completely open." "As expected. What about ground forces?" "They have armies, but they are scattered across the planet's surface. Different nations with different commands. No unified defense structure." Hyunwoo's mouth twisted into what passed for a Victari smile. "Perfect. Send the surrender demand." A message was broadcast across all frequencies. It was simple and direct. Surrender or die. You have one planetary rotation to respond. The Victari settled into wait. They expected begging. They expected panic. They expected offers of resources and territory in exchange for mercy. What they got was silence. For the first few hours, Earth sent no response at all. The Victari assumed the humans were too shocked to respond. Perhaps their primitive communication systems had broken under the stress. Perhaps their leaders were hiding. Then, after about 8 hours, a single message came through. It was from Ambassador Taiho. "Dear Victari Commander," the message read. "Thank you for your surrender demand. We have considered it carefully. Our response is no, we do not surrender. We do not accept your authority. If you want Earth, you will have to take it. Good luck. We've been preparing for this moment our entire existence. Sincerely, humanity." War Commander Hyunwoo read the message 3 times. He could not believe what he was seeing. "Is this a joke?" he asked his officers. "It appears to be genuine, Commander. They are refusing to surrender? They have no defenses. No ships, no shields. What are they going to fight us with?" No one had an answer. Hyunwoo decided that the humans were simply too primitive to understand their situation. They would learn soon enough. "Begin the invasion," he ordered. Phase 1. Destroy their satellites and communication systems. Phase 2. Eliminate their military bases. Phase 3. Ground assault on major population centers. The Victari fleet moved toward Earth. On the planet's surface, humans watched through telescopes and satellites as the warships approached. There was fear, yes, but there was also something else, something the Victari had never seen before. There was excitement. General Minho was 72 years old. He had fought in 3 wars, survived 2 assassination attempts, and once walked 40 miles through a desert with a broken leg. He was the highest-ranking military officer on Earth, chosen by the United Nations to coordinate humanity's defense. He stood in a command center deep beneath a mountain, watching screens that showed the approaching fleet. Around him, officers from 50 different countries worked at their stations. They spoke different languages, wore different uniforms, believed in different gods. But today, they were all human. Today, they had one enemy. "General," said Colonel Suji, his second in command, The first wave is entering the atmosphere. They are targeting our satellite network. Let them, Minho said calmly. We expected this, sir. Our satellites are useful, but not essential. We have backup communication systems, radio towers, underground cables, messenger pigeons if necessary. Messenger pigeons, sir? I am joking, Colonel, mostly. The first Victoria attack ships streaked through Earth's atmosphere like meteors. They were fast and deadly, armed with weapons that could destroy buildings with a single shot. They spread across the planet, targeting every satellite, every space station, every piece of technology that floated above the surface. Within 3 hours, Earth's orbital infrastructure was completely destroyed. War Commander Hyunwoo watched the results with satisfaction. Phase 1 complete. Begin Phase 2. The next wave of attacks targeted military bases. Vectari ships flew over continents, dropping bombs on airfields, naval ports, and army installations. They expected to face anti-aircraft fire, but most of it was weak and poorly aimed. The human weapons were too slow to track Vectari ships. Bases burned. Aircraft were destroyed before they could take off. Ships sank in their harbors. It seemed like the war would be over quickly, but something strange began to happen. The attacks continued, but the humans were not behaving as expected. Conquered species usually panicked when their militaries were destroyed. They fled, they hid, they begged for mercy. The humans did none of these things. Instead, they got angry. All across Earth, people who had never held a weapon began to arm themselves. Farmers found their old hunting rifles. Factory workers grabbed tools that could be used as clubs. Grandmothers remembered where they had hidden their father's swords from ancient wars. Children filled bottles with flammable liquids. The attacks had destroyed organized military forces, but they had awakened something else. 8 billion individuals, each deciding independently to fight back. The first sign of trouble came when a Vectari ground transport crashed into the ocean near a coastal city. The ship had been damaged by a missile that should not have been able to touch it. Investigation revealed that humans had modified a weather satellite dish into a crude targeting system. It should not have worked. It was held together with tape and hope. But somehow, it had worked. More reports followed. A Vectari patrol was ambushed by farmers driving tractors modified to launch rockets. A supply convoy was destroyed by explosives hidden in a road that had been booby-trapped overnight. A landing zone was abandoned when humans released swarms of small flying machines that clogged the Vectari ship's air intakes. They are using drones, the tactical officer reported. Small commercial drones. They are attaching explosives to them and flying them into our ships. Commercial drones? Hyunwoo demanded. Toys? Yes, Commander. Thousands of them. Millions, perhaps. General Minho watched the battle unfold from his command center. He did not try to control everything. He could not. The fight was happening everywhere at once, in ways no one had planned. A teenager in Brazil had figured out how to hack Vectari communication systems using a gaming computer. She was now listening to enemy transmissions and sharing them with anyone who would listen. An engineer in Japan had designed a simple device that could disrupt Vectari shields. The plans were spreading across the internet, being built in garages and workshops around the world. A grandmother in Nigeria was organizing her neighborhood to dig tunnels under the streets. When Vectari patrols came through, the ground collapsed beneath them. A chef in France had discovered that Vectari armor was vulnerable to a certain frequency of sound. He was leading a group of musicians who followed enemy troops, playing instruments that made their heads hurt. It was chaos. Complete and total chaos. No central plan. No unified command. Just millions of individuals finding their own ways to fight. And somehow, impossibly, it was working. War Commander Hyunwoo stared at the reports coming in from his ground forces. Casualties were mounting, not from any single threat, but from thousands of small attacks. Every time they tried to secure an area, new threats appeared. Every time they destroyed one group of fighters, two more emerged. How is this possible? He demanded. They have no military, no weapons, no training. His tactical officer looked terrified. Commander, I do not understand either. They are attacking us with vehicles, with machines meant for farming and construction, with tools, with their bare hands. With their hands? Yes, sir. I have reports of humans attacking our soldiers without weapons. They know they will die. They attack anyway. Hyun-woo sat back in his command chair. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. Conquered species always had a breaking point, a moment when they realized they could not win and gave up. It was simple mathematics. When the cost of resistance became too high, surrender became logical. But these humans did not seem to understand mathematics. They did not seem to understand logic. They kept fighting even when it was clearly hopeless. They laughed in the face of death and threw themselves at enemies 10 times their size. Commander, the tactical officer said, we are receiving a transmission from the surface. Put it through. The screen flickered and Ambassador Taiho appeared. He was covered in dust and there was blood. About what had happened at Earth, the story had spread to every corner of civilized space, told and retold until it had become legend, a primitive species. No defenses. 8 billion individuals. One of the most feared military forces in the galaxy. Defeated in less than a month. No one could quite believe it. Inspector. Yuna had requested a return visit to Earth. She needed to understand. She needed to see for herself what had happened. The council had agreed, hoping she would bring back answers to questions that kept them awake at night. How had the humans done it? What was their secret? And most importantly, were they a threat? Yuna's shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere on a warm spring day. The planet below looked the same as before, blue and green and beautiful. But she knew it had changed. The humans had changed. Something had awakened during the invasion, and it had not gone back to sleep. She landed at the same platform in Seoul where she had arrived before. The city was rebuilding. Some buildings still showed damage from the attacks. Others were already new, rising higher than what had stood before. Construction machines moved everywhere. The sound of hammers and drills filled the air. Ambassador Taiho was waiting for her, just like before. But he looked different. Older, somehow, even though only 3 cycles had passed. There were new lines on his face and a scar across his forehead that had not been there before, but his smile was the same. Wide and warm and slightly strange. Inspector Yuna, he said, bowing. Welcome back to Earth. I hope the journey was comfortable. The journey was acceptable, Yuna replied, using the same words she had used before. It felt like a ritual now. I suppose you have questions. Many questions. Then let us talk. But first, I promised you coffee last time. This time, I promise you something even better. We have a new drink. We call it Victory Blend. Despite everything, Yuna almost smiled. Victory Blend? We named it during the war. The first person to make it was a woman in Seoul. Her apartment had been destroyed, but she found her coffee equipment in the rubble. She set up a small stand in the street and started making coffee for the fighters. Free of charge. All day and all night. That seems impractical. Completely impractical. But it gave people hope. Something warm to drink. A moment of normal in the middle of chaos. That is what humans do, Inspector. We find small comforts in terrible times. They walked through the city together. Yuna observed everything. The reconstruction. The people. the energy that seemed to buzz in the air like electricity. Everyone was busy. Working, building, talking, planning. But there was something else too. A confidence that had not been there before. The humans had faced their greatest fear and survived. They had looked death in the face and laughed. Now they walked like people who knew exactly what they were capable of. Taiho took her to a small restaurant near the embassy. It was nothing special from the outside, just another building among thousands. But inside, it was filled with people eating and drinking and talking loudly. The smell of food was overwhelming. Dozens of different dishes cooking at once. This place was destroyed during the invasion, Taiho explained as they sat down. A bomb landed 2 streets away. The owner rebuilt it in 3 weeks. She said she was not going to let some aliens keep her from cooking. A young woman brought them cups of dark liquid. The victory blend. Yuna took a sip and found it stronger than the coffee she remembered. Bitter and bold, with something almost spicy underneath. So, Taiho said, "What do you want to know?" Yuna set down her cup and looked at him directly. "Everything. How did you do it? How did a species with no defenses defeat one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. He looked around the restaurant at all the people living their lives, then back at Yuna. "Do you know what the Vectari's mistake was? Tell me." They thought they were invading a planet. They were wrong. They were invading 8 billion individual minds. Each one thinking. Each one planning. Each one finding their own way to fight. But surely there was coordination. Strategy. Of course. We had command structures. Military leaders. Communication networks. But that was not what won the war. What won the war was the grandmother who figured out how to make armor-piercing arrows. The teenager who hacked their communications. The chef who discovered their sound weakness. Millions of individual discoveries shared instantly around the world. Yuna frowned. Your species shares information that freely? Even military secrets? During the invasion? Absolutely. Someone would discover something, post it online, and within hours, people on the other side of the planet were using the same technique. Our enemies could not adapt fast enough. Every time they countered one threat, 10 new ones appeared. That is remarkable. It is chaos. Beautiful, terrible, wonderful chaos. We cannot control each other. We cannot even agree on basic things like religion or politics or which foods are best. But when something threatens all of us, we become something else. Something unstoppable. A door opened behind them, and someone new entered the restaurant. Yuna turned to see a human woman in military uniform. She had short gray hair and eyes that looked like they had seen too much. "Inspector Yuna," Taiho said. "This is Colonel Suji. She was second in command of Earth's defense forces during the invasion." Suji sat down across from them. Her movements were precise, controlled. Everything about her spoke of discipline and training. She was nothing like the chaotic civilians Yuna had been observing. "Ambassador Taiho tells me you want to understand our victory," Suji said without greeting. "Yes. Then I will tell you the truth. We should not have won. By every logical measure, we should have been conquered in days. The Vectari were right to think we were easy prey." Yuna leaned forward. "Then how did you win? Because logic does not account for human stupidity." "Excuse me?" Suji almost smiled. "Humans are not rational beings, Inspector. We do not make decisions based on probability or cost-benefit analysis. We make decisions based on emotion, pride, fear, love, anger. We will fight battles we know we cannot win because giving up feels worse than dying. That seems inefficient, extremely inefficient. But here's the secret that no species in the galaxy understands." Suji leaned forward, her voice dropping low. Efficiency is not the same as effectiveness. A perfectly efficient species does the logical thing every time. They surrender when the odds are against them. They retreat when they are losing. They conserve resources for fights they can win. And humans? Humans throw away resources on impossible causes. We sacrifice ourselves for strangers. We attack enemies 10 times our size. We do things that make absolutely no sense. She paused. And sometimes, that changes the odds. Yuna did not understand. How can a logical behavior change mathematical odds? Because the universe is not a math problem. War is not a calculation. When you factor in determination, creativity, and sheer stubborn refusal to accept reality, the equations break down. Taiho jumped in. Think about it this way, Inspector. The Victari calculated that conquering Earth would cost them a certain number of troops. They were prepared for that cost. But they were not prepared for a species that would fight beyond any reasonable point. A species that would never stop, never surrender, never accept defeat, even when defeat was certain. You overwhelmed their calculations, Yuna said slowly. We made their calculations meaningless. They could not predict us because we do not predict ourselves. Every human is a chaos engine, generating unexpected outcomes. Multiply that by 8 billion, and you have something no algorithm can model. Suji nodded. The Victari were prepared for resistance. They were not prepared for what we call human spirit, the part of us that keeps going when every logical reason says to stop. The part that looks at impossible odds and says, let us try anyway. Yuna sat back in her chair, processing everything she had heard. It was so different from everything she had been taught. In the galactic community, species survived by being efficient, organized, predictable. They built walls and weapons. They followed plans. They calculated risks and avoided unnecessary losses. But the humans had survived by being the opposite, chaotic, unpredictable, willing to lose everything for a chance at victory. You said your security is not in shields, Yuna recalled. During my first visit, Ambassador Taiho said that. I remember, Taiho said. You also said I would understand if danger actually came, that I would see what humans really are. And? Do you understand now? Yuna thought carefully before answering. I believe I am beginning to. Your species evolved on a hostile world, competing against each other for limited resources. This created a flexible approach to problem solving. Flexible is one word for it, Suji said. You learned that strict plans fail when circumstances change. You learned to adapt in real time, to improvise, to find solutions in unexpected places. Yes, Taiho said. And you learned that giving up is the only certain path to defeat. As long as you keep trying, there is always a chance. Now you understand. Yuna picked up her cup and took a long drink of the victory blend. It was still bitter and bold, but she was beginning to appreciate it. May I ask you something personal, Ambassador? Of course. During the invasion, were you afraid? Taiho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than before. Terrified. Every single moment. I watched bombs fall on my city. I saw people die. I thought about my family, my friends, everyone I loved. I was certain we were all going to die. The Galactic Council chamber was full for the first time in 100 cycles. Representatives from every major civilization had come to hear Inspector Yuna's final report on Earth. The story of the Victari defeat had spread too far to ignore. Everyone wanted to understand. Everyone wanted to know if they should be worried. Yuna stood at the central podium, just as she had months before. But she felt different now. She had seen things that changed how she understood the galaxy. She had met beings who challenged everything she thought she knew about survival and strength. The chamber fell silent as she began to speak. Distinguished members of the council, I have completed my assessment of Earth and its inhabitants. I will present my findings, but first, I must make a confession. She paused, looking around at the thousands of faces watching her. When I first visited Earth, I believed I understood this situation. A primitive planet. No defenses. Easy to conquer if anyone chose to do so. I recommended observation and expressed mild curiosity about the humans' unusual attitudes. I was wrong. The chamber buzzed with whispers. Inspectors did not usually admit to being wrong. Certainly not in front of the full council. My initial report focused on what Earth lacked. No shields. No orbital platforms. No galactic-class weapons. By our standards, they were defenseless. I assumed this meant they were weak, but I made a fundamental error. I measured the humans by our standards. I evaluated them using our definitions of strength. I did not consider that their strength might be of a completely different kind. She brought up a holographic display showing Earth, beautiful and blue against the darkness of space. The Vectari Empire attacked Earth with 500 warships and 50,000 soldiers. They expected to conquer the planet in days. Instead, they retreated in less than a month, having lost over 15,000 troops and countless ships. They have now classified Earth as a restricted zone. No Vectari vessel is permitted within 10 light years. More whispers filled the chamber. The Vectari had been one of the most feared military forces in the galaxy. Their defeat was still hard for many to believe. I have spent the past several cycles investigating how this happened. I have interviewed human leaders, observed their society, and studied their history. I am now prepared to explain their victory and provide a new assessment of Earth's threat level. She changed the display to show scenes from the invasion. Human fighters using improvised weapons. Destroyed Vectari vehicles. Cities burning but not surrendered. The humans did not win because of superior technology. They did not win because of better strategy. They won because of something far more difficult to counter. They won because of what they are. Humanity is a species born of chaos. Their planet was harsh, and their evolution was competitive. For hundreds of thousands of cycles, they fought each other for survival. They developed not one culture, but thousands. Not one language, but thousands. Not one approach to problem solving, but millions. This diversity, which many species would consider a weakness, is actually their greatest strength. When faced with a threat, humans do not respond with a single unified strategy. They respond with billions of individual strategies. Each human mind becomes a separate battle computer, generating unique solutions. She showed data on the screen. Statistics about the invasion. Numbers that told a story. During the Vectari attack, humans developed over 40,000 distinct defensive innovations. Some were technological. Some were tactical. Some were simply creative ways to use existing tools. These innovations spread through their communication networks at incredible speed. Within hours of discovery, any new technique was being used around the planet. The Vectari could not adapt fast enough. Every time they countered one threat, dozens more appeared. They were facing an enemy that evolved in real time, learning from every encounter, sharing knowledge instantly across the entire population. Councilor GA raised her hand. Inspector, you said they developed 40,000 innovations. How is that possible in such a short time? Because they were not designed by a central authority. They emerged from the population spontaneously. A farmer noticed something about Vectari armor. A student figured out how to disrupt their communications. A grandmother remembered an old weapon design. 8 billion minds, all working on the same problem, will find solutions that no individual or organization could discover. This is what I mean by chaos being strength. We prize organization and efficiency. We believe that central planning produces optimal results. But the humans have shown us that decentralized innovation can be even more powerful, especially under pressure. She changed the display again, this time showing the aftermath of the invasion. Reconstruction, rebuilding, progress. But there is more. The humans did not just survive the invasion. They have been transformed by it. Before the attack, they were divided. Their many nations competed with each other, sometimes violently. But facing a common enemy united them in ways they had never experienced. In the cycle since the Victari retreat, Earth has undergone rapid development. They are sharing technology across national borders. They are coordinating their scientific research. They are building a unified space defense network. Not because any government ordered it, but because they collectively decided it was necessary. My projection is that within 50 cycles, Earth will have achieved galactic standard defensive capabilities. Within 100 cycles, they may surpass them. And within 200 cycles, she paused. I hesitate to predict. This species moved faster when motivated. And they are very motivated now. Elder Dowan spoke, his stone voice rumbling through the chamber. Inspector, you mentioned their psychological characteristics. Can you elaborate? Yes, Elder. This is perhaps the most important part of my report. She brought up images of humans. Smiling faces. Laughing people. Celebrations in the streets. Humans have a unique response to danger. When threatened, they do not simply fight or flee. They also laugh. They make jokes. They find humor in their darkest moments. At first, I found this confusing. It seemed like denial or madness. I now understand it differently. Human laughter in the face of danger is a deliberate psychological technique. It reduces fear. It increases morale. It communicates confidence to allies and uncertainty to enemies. When a species laughs at you while you are trying to kill them, it disrupts your expectations and your planning. The Victari expected terror. They expected begging. They expected a broken population willing to surrender. Instead, they found enemies who smiled and mocked them, who wrote songs about defeating them, who threw parties while bombs were falling. This psychological resilience was as important as any weapon. She looked around the chamber, meeting eyes with counselors from many different species. There is a phrase the humans use, laughing in the face of death. I believe this perfectly captures their nature. They do not deny death. They do not pretend danger does not exist. They acknowledge the worst that could happen and then refuse to let fear control them. This is not courage as we typically define it. It is something else. Something harder to explain. They call it defiance. The refusal to accept defeat even when defeat is certain. The determination to keep fighting simply because giving up feels worse than dying. She took a deep breath before delivering her conclusion. Distinguished council members, I must now provide my final assessment. I have spent my career evaluating the security status of developing worlds. I have always used standard categories: vulnerable, protected, secure, dangerous. For Earth, I am creating a new category. She entered commands into her podium, and the display changed to show official council documentation. I am classifying Earth as avoid at all costs. The chamber erupted in noise. Representatives shouted questions. Councilors argued with each other. This category did not exist. No inspector had ever used it. Yuna waited for the noise to die down before continuing. Let me explain. The standard threat categories assume that danger comes from capability. A planet is dangerous because it has powerful weapons. It is vulnerable because it lacks them. This framework does not work for humans. Earth by traditional measures, remains relatively vulnerable. Their technology is still primitive, compared to many galactic civilizations. Their military forces are still developing. They could be destroyed by sufficient force, but destroying them would require a level of commitment that no sensible civilization would make. Because the humans will not surrender. They cannot surrender. Their psychology does not allow for it. They would fight until the last individual, the last bullet, the last rock thrown by the last child. And during that fight, they would adapt. They would learn. They would find weaknesses you did not know existed. They would make every victory cost more than it was worth. They would turn easy conquest into endless war. The Vectari learned this. They had enough power to glass the entire planet, to turn Earth into a dead rock. But they would have lost most of their fleet in the process. More importantly, they would have shown the galaxy that the mighty Vectari Empire could not conquer a primitive world without committing genocide. This is why Irukam,